It'll start to download. And then, lo and behold, you find the PDF right here. And JSTOR always puts this cover page on everything. And so you have all of that metadata originally right here. You also have a link to find it in the database. Granted, you have to be logged into JSTOR or through the proxy to begin with. And then there's the article. If you're in a lot of browsers, I'm using Safari on a Mac, but a lot of other browsers will have the same sort of thing to where Adobe Acrobat will come up, or Adobe Reader will come up within the browser. If that's the case and you still want to save it, what you need to do is you need to click on this little disk version and then figure out where you want to save it. Maybe give it a fancy name, supply and demand from American Economic Review. This one you got, and press save. So we'll come back to that more. So let's go actually find something more helpful. I'm just demonstrating certain aspects. So what certain things that you might want to pay attention to is some of these articles can span like 60 pages. And if you don't want to give yourself a 60-page commitment, really pay attention to the number of pages that are there. So this one's only 8 pages, this one's only 6 pages. Granted, don't find the shortest ones. The shortest ones are generally not that helpful. This one's 2 pages. It's from the Journal of Marketing, but it might not be that helpful. Another thing that you want to do is you want to find stuff that's fairly recent. It's strange how old some of these are right now. It's 66 and 68. There's 89 coming up right here and here. 70, 55. I mean, stuff that's done in 1955 might not be as helpful for us because so much more scholarship has happened since then. And you can find some incredibly strange articles by doing this sort of stuff. Approximating farm level returns to incremental advertising expenditure, etc. This one might be more helpful. Advertising and social values, because this is more in the scope of what we want to be looking at. Another thing you can do if you just want to download a bunch of articles that you like, you can just click the download link right here. And then you have the same sort of thing happen as before. Here's our Lester Telser again. And there he is again. And this one is, these two are in the Journal of Political Economy. In 62 as well. So, this one's 86. This might be interesting, the effects of a television radio advertising ban, study of the cigarette industry as a way of talking about what happens afterwards, but it'd be a horrible article. What you do is you really need to open it up and look at it. This one might be a good article, the macroeconomic relationship between advertising and consumption. Consumption might be a word that we want to pay attention to. So let's go back up. Perhaps advertising isn't what we want. Advertising identity isn't what we want, but say advertising, and we'll just throw a bunch of things in here. Advertising and beauty and identity and aesthetics. So we only get 942 articles this time, which is possibly a little bit closer. Now you can see this is Journal of Art Aesthetics and Art Criticism, Art Journal, British Journal of Sociology, Art Journal. These are kind of different. It's a different set of journals, because remember the last ones we had were mostly about advertising and economics. Here, the Journal of Aesthetics and Art Criticism, again, 20th century literature. Some of these might not be as helpful. Social studies in women literature, but they might be incredibly helpful. So, let's see. Parnassus, 1937. This is kind of interesting just as a historical thing. Modern style in American advertising art. Female aesthetic community. So if we click on this is in 93. You can tell where they're from, Anthropology of Assay. Most beautiful face in the world, not Elizabeth Taylor's, not Christine Brinkley's, not Brooke Shields, it's yours. This is not advertising copy. The reason why your face is so beautiful is that it's unique. It has your incredible depth and personality written all over it. It has your creativity and radiance. Estee Lauder, 1985. So this is probably actually advertising copy from somewhere else. The great modernisms were, as we have said, predicated on the invention of a personal private style as unmistakable as your fingerprint, as incomparable as your own body. But this means that the modernist aesthetic is in some way organically linked to the conception of the unique self and private identity, a unique personality and individuality, which can be expected to generate its own unique vision of the world and forge its own unique, unmistakable style from Frederick Jameson in 88. So certain journals do this. They give an abstract, which is basically a sort of summary of what is going on in the article. So makeup advertising, a particularly gendered part of consumer discourse, constructs women as objects while appealing to them as subjects. Although we might assume that makeup would be particularly amenable to a postmodern discussion of a play with surfaces, it is, on the contrary, a domain which retains a rhetoric of modernity in a postmodern world. Mass market makeover videotapes construct a public with a particular aesthetic, a community of women who learn to see themselves and others in culturally specific ways. So the analysis continues on to the next page. If you want to just quickly look at the next page, you can just click the next page button as well, and what you'll see is the abstract ends up going until today. Or sorry, not today, but to right here. So one thing that you can already tell is this might be a harder article to read, just because of the sort of technical language that it's already employing, especially when you're talking about postmodern, and the word construct is always particularly useful, but it can be used in a technical way, and women as objects while appealing to them as subjects, that seems a little bit impenetrable. A particularly gendered part of the consumer discourse constructs women as objects while appealing to them as subjects. So I can tell you that this seems like a very interesting article that would work very well for what we're doing, but it might be a little bit harder. If you do get something like this and you don't exactly understand it, I would still encourage you to try to read it and try to use this as what you select. I mean, the more you stretch yourself on these things, the better it will be. Don't worry about getting like full mastery of what the article is. If there seems to be a lot of interest in the article between a lot of different students in the class, then it'll be one of those things that'll come in and we can talk about as a class, and we can try to figure out more what it means together, and try to get past some of the language. So this one's 20 pages long, or 21 pages long. And so let's go ahead and download this high quality PDF. It's going to open up. And I'm going to just title something. This isn't just something that you would expect to find in Poetics Today necessarily, but it is interesting that it is there. So you don't always judge the journal. It might be helpful. One thing that you will find is that if you use something like a word aesthetics, you will get perhaps more academic articles, because aesthetic is a more academic